Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our monthly webinar in May. My name is Courtney Arroyo, and I'm the Assistant Coordinator for Communications and Community Engagement here at the Department of Emergency Management and Security. We do monthly webinars, and our theme for this year in 2025 is Together We're Ready, focusing on family preparedness and making sure that everyone has an emergency plan and an emergency kit. Ready Fairfax is our preparedness program, and we go out and we talk about what to do before, during, and after different emergencies and disasters. And then, like today, we're going to be focusing on some hazards such as flooding and hurricanes as we enter into hurricane season. We do have quite a few classes that we offer. We can come out and do those if you have any groups that you want to invite us to, and feel free to reach out for those. We do also have the Community Emergency Response Guide, and that is one of our main products that we have that we educate folks on. Within our guide, we have templates. We also have different hazard pages that you can check out. And we're going to hear more from our guest later, who is Chase from the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services, and he is going to talk to us a little bit more in depth about flooding and what hurricanes have had effects here in Fairfax County. So we're really excited to have Chase on, and he'll give us a ton more information than I'm going to give you right now. So just to give you a little bit about hurricanes, we do have a specific hazard page, but with hurricanes, we often see effects of hurricanes, which could be high winds, rainfall, flooding, even some tornadoes. We do have some key words too that you may hear if we are expecting a hurricane or a tropical storm. So just know the difference between watches and warnings and when those storms are expected. And then, of course, we have had effects of hurricanes here in Virginia. Chase is going to give you a lot more detail, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview and give you, an estimate of some of the damages that it has caused in Fairfax County. But I want to, turn it over to Chase, because one of the great things that he's going to tell us is not only what types of damage and everything that's happened in the area, but we're going to end with what you can do to prepare your family, prepare your home, and contribute to your community. So Chase, I'll turn it over to you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Courtney, and thank you all for having us here for the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. I am Chase Suddith. I'm the Emergency Manager for DPWES's Stormwater divisions, and our primary responsibility, one of them during hurricanes, is to deal with the flooding and coordinating with DEMS on the response to the flooding. So as Courtney said, hurricanes have affected Northern Virginia and over the last 100 years, and many notable examples of that in recent history. So one thing that we do want to be sure of is that when you do see the forecast track, do not focus only on the eye of that storm. The impacts will be felt far away from the center of the storm, including high winds, storm surge from the tidal Potomac, the heavy rainfall, and even some tornadoes. So even last year, I'll bring up Tropical Storm Debbie with a Y. Debbie went through and kind of went through Southwest Virginia, but it brought tornadoes here to Southeast Fairfax County. None touched down, but we had tornado warnings that rattled us all out of bed at 6 a.m. in the morning. So that was very far away from, more than 100 miles from the center of where that storm went, but we had some of those severe weather outbreaks. Another key example is Hurricane Isabel, which I'm going to talk a lot about here in just a moment. But Hurricane Isabel's track went through Harrisonburg, Virginia, almost 80 miles west of Fairfax County, but the impacts here and all across the Commonwealth were very significant based on the track of that coming up the Chesapeake Bay, kind of brought all that wind and all that water into our area. So I wanted to show an animation of how Hurricane Isabel actually affected the Belhaven area of Fairfax County in 2003. So the animation will show from about 7 p.m. on that Thursday night of the water coming into the neighborhood and showing inundation throughout the entire neighborhood. So we're pulling it up right now. And so you can see just after 7, the tide comes in, it starts to fill up the entire neighborhood. The Bellevue Shopping Center is there on the left, the GW Parkway is on the right, and you can see that it was totally inundated in that neighborhood. And so what did that look like on the ground? Hurricane Isabel brought a record 8.66 foot river level to Alexandria and flooded many riverside communities throughout the state and the region, including Bellevue, Huntington, and Belhaven area of Fairfax County. You can see some of the damage there where we had water getting into homes. You can see the high water marks there on the top right. It came over top of our tide gate because that only protects to about 7 feet. And so the entire neighborhood was covered in water. And we actually had to evacuate a big number of residents from both Bellevue and Huntington. But the coast isn't the only place that we need to be prepared for flooding, as tropical systems can bring more than a whole month of rain in just a few hours. And that can lead to flooding where you'd least expect it. So we had tropical systems like Tropical Storm Hannah, Tropical Storm Lee was very significant, and Tropical Storm Ida, as well as some of the others that were mentioned earlier, Sandy and other storms that came in. And it's also, I did want to include where the center of those storms went. And they all were at different locations as well. So none of those went right over us. And that's why we want you to pay attention to the entire width of the storm, not just where the center of that is going. The impacts can be felt far outside. Tropical Storm Lee actually kind of dissipated and turned into a different scenario and brought multiple days of heavy rain to us here. You can see that the Colonial Beach had 21 inches during that week. And then Tropical Storm Hannah there on the left, southern Fairfax County, and Woodbridge got almost 10 inches of rain as Tropical Storm Hannah came through. So we've got lots of examples, and it is something that happens here in our region. So it's also important to know what types of floods can affect your property, your neighborhood, and your commute so that you can prepare for what actions you would take when an alert is issued for our area. So there are 3 typical types of flooding that affects Fairfax County. Riverine flooding occurs when heavy rainfall causes rivers or streams to overflow out of their banks and into floodplains. This can also cause roads, bridges, and trails in low-lying areas to become flooded. We'll show you how you can identify just how close you are to a floodplain in a bit. But riverine flooding isn't the only kind of flooding that affects our area. Urban flooding occurs when the stormwater drainage system is overwhelmed due to heavy rainfall. Obstructions to the stormwater infrastructure can also cause big issues, like a rogue trash can lid or a soccer ball blocking a pipe, or grass, leaves, and debris clogging storm drains. That can lead to flooding in unexpected places. And as we've alluded to, Fairfax County has miles of beautiful shoreline and wetlands along the tidal Potomac River, but the proximity to the river makes several neighborhoods vulnerable to tidal or coastal flooding. And that coastal flooding can even happen on sunny days. Heavy rain, tidal anomalies, tidal systems, tropical systems, nor'easters, and even onshore winds can lead to flooding of properties, homes, and streets in low-lying areas in Belhaven, like Bellevue, New Alexandria, and in the Huntington area. I also want to quickly run through the types of flood alerts that are issued by the National Weather Service leading up to and during flooding. They are great partners, and we could not do it without them. So it's important to be prepared and know how to respond when watches or warnings are issued for our area. Each time one of these alerts is issued, the meteorologist at the National Weather Service provides a full text description of what's going on, the areas impacted, and precautionary and protective actions to take, as well as the duration of that watch or warning. Fairfax Alerts includes weather alerts issued by the National Weather Service. A flood watch means that conditions are favorable for flooding or flash flooding in the next day or two, so you should stay weather aware and be prepared for that flooding. A flood warning means that flooding is imminent or occurring. Never drive through a flooded roadway. You do not know the condition of the road under the water. Roadbeds may be washed out underneath of the water, like this little red bug found out during Tropical Storm Lee in 2011. Plus, it only takes 6 inches of fast-moving water to knock down an adult, and and a foot of water can sweep away a car. We have dozens of water rescues every year in our region, many of which needlessly puts first responders in harm's way. When you see a flooded road, turn around, don't drown, and find another route. A flash flood warning means that dangerous flash flooding is occurring or imminent. Water rises rapidly in flash floods and can cause flooding of roads, homes, and urban areas. You should seek higher ground and avoid traveling. In exceptional circumstances like the July 9th, 2019 flash floods, the National Weather Service will issue a flash flood emergency, meaning that extremely heavy rain is causing a life-threatening situation and catastrophic damage is expected. You should not attempt to travel unless you are fleeing an area that is flooding or you are told to evacuate. So as I mentioned, in addition to the flooding from rain, portions of our area are subject to the coastal flooding. So the National Weather Service keeps an eye on that year-round as well. They have 3 flood categories to determine the impact level, which are available on their website. Minor coastal flooding is typically when water is just a little bit out of its banks and some roads may be impacted, but this happens multiple times a year. Moderate to major levels is when widespread flooding is occurring along the shoreline. Those who live near the tidal Potomac should pay attention to these alerts and also subscribe to Riverwatch, a Fairfax Alert subscription specifically for the flood-prone neighborhoods in Belhaven, like Bellevue, New Alexandria, and the Huntington area. We also, during a tropical system, we would have a storm surge, possibly, depending on where the center of the track goes. So storm surge is that rising water moving inland from the shore, pushed by the force of the wind over and above the predicted tides. Storm surge watch would be issued by the National Hurricane Center, generally about 48 hours before the storm was to come into our area. And then a storm surge warning would mean that there is the danger of life-threatening inundation moving inland along the shoreline. I did include a map here of the river level for about a 10-foot. That is the 100-year flood for this area. And so you can see that many areas, including Richmond Highway, and then many areas east of Fort Hunt Road in the Bellevue area would be impacted significantly and have lots of water in those neighborhoods. That is the 100-year flood for that community. And so there is always a chance for that happening. And over the course of your mortgage, I'll show you more in just a second as to how that increase has been happening. And it's been about 22 years since Hurricane Isabel. So we'll remember that. You can also view the Resilient Fairfax Plan and the website from the Office of Energy and Environmental Coordination, as well as resources from the Commonwealth of Virginia to learn how sea level rise and changes to our local climates will impact you. So why should we be prepared? We can be, as you know, we can be affected by well-forecasted events with several days of lead time, as well as those sudden no-notice events of torrential downpours. There are examples every year of those torrential downpours, which can overwhelm the storm drainage system. They're also difficult to pinpoint much in advance. And the most significant example, of course, in Fairfax County was July of 2019, when the thunderstorms dumped 4 to 5 inches in Northern Virginia and the immediate metro area during the morning rush hour. The torrential downpours led to sinkholes, road washouts, and dozens of water rescues, flooded homes and businesses. It caused more than $14 million in damages in Fairfax County alone. And the Fairfax County Fire Rescue Department responded to 56 water rescue calls in just 1 hour. But that was in a very small portion of the county, and a tropical system could bring that amount of rainfall that quickly, very quickly, across the entire region. So we need to be prepared, and that kind of flash flooding can and will happen again. So anywhere it can rain, it can flood. So let's be prepared and work together to become a well-prepared and resilient community. So how can you do that? I want to note the coastal flooding website that we have, and the Bellevue tidal controls provide protection up to about a 25-year flood. That is 4% chance of happening in any given year. However, the probability of a 25-year tide over the next 30 years exceeds 70%. So we've got a lot of resources for that area of the county, including a new video, updates to our coastal flooding website, and more information between the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services and Ready Fairfax. Why does flooding occur? We've talked about the extreme rainfall events, locally, land use changes, the impervious cover, floodplains, overland flow, and the climate change element. So understanding your flood risk is an important piece that's the first step to know about is your property's flood risk. And there are several places where you can look up the flood risk for your property and for your neighborhood. I'm partial, obviously, to the flood risk awareness tool, which is on our website. The QR code's there if you want to get a screen grab, or you can get to it by just searching for flood information at Fairfax County. And the flood risk awareness tool, thank you. The flood risk awareness tool also shows what the FEMA floodplains are, but it also shows some sumps where water may be standing if one of those rogue soccer balls or trash can lids blocks the system. So knowing where those are, knowing if your home is in a sump, and taking action from there is very important. The Department of Public Works found that the three main causes of flooding are how close your property is to a floodplain, a sump, or an inadequate overland relief path. So again, utilize that tool so that you can get more information and know exactly for your property. We also say to make room for the runoff. Water is going to follow the most available path of least resistance. So that stormwater pipe system are intended to collect and convey rainwater from common storms, but not once we exceed the 100-year storms. During the larger, more intense storms, such as this tropical systems or thunderstorms that are training or very intense thunderstorms, the stormwater system will reach capacity, and that will activate overland relief and all of the floodplains. Make room for the runoff by keeping those flow paths clear, fences, planting beds, sheds, and anything that can cause ponding or damming of the flooding. And floodplains will have standing water in them for several days after a rainfall event. If your yard is located in a floodplain, you should expect standing or ponding of water during and after our next rain event. These are some examples that we've encountered of overland flow paths being blocked by sheds, getting dislocated. You've got coolers floating downstream. So those are things to keep an eye on and make sure that the way that around your neighborhood that the water can get out and it's not going to dam up and come back into your basement. Homes that sit in a sump or a bowl have water that can't get out. And again, that's where you can run into inadequate overland flow, but also some of the flooding that you wouldn't expect. So as far as our stormwater infrastructure system, the Fairfax County maintains 1,400 miles of pipes, 66,000 storm structures. We have 200 miles of man-made channels and over 2,500 ponds. And they are located all over the county. You're driving past them right now, or earlier today, hopefully. They're in residential areas. They're through drainage on commercial, industrial, and institutional sites like Northern Virginia Community College and hospitals. It's integrated with the road drainage system, which is VDOT maintained responsibility. Driveways and culverts and some neighborhood systems and neighborhood ponds and lakes are private responsibility. But if you have any questions on who maintains that, we have a stormwater infrastructure map that you can get to from the flood information site. And then as we identify issues with flooding, we try to reduce the risk with mitigation projects that provide overland relief, storm infrastructure improvements, flood-proofing measures, and then if there are areas that have repetitive loss, we have a voluntary buyout program, but we need your help with knowing where the flooding is happening, confirming where the flooding is happening. So please do give us a call as you encounter flooding. Proactively, we do inspect and we find pipe issues. We find clogs in the pipes, missing pipes, damaged pipes, clogged pipes. So we've got a team at our Maintenance and Stormwater Management division who is out there on the streets every day. We've got stormwater inspectors that are going out and responding to each of your service requests as well. We also reinvest in our infrastructures. We do repairs, replacements, new stormwater projects to make sure, because if we don't reinvest, little things like that do become big problems. And so that's an important piece of what everybody in Public Works deals with, and we're trying to be a more resilient community. So now is the time, though. This is very important. Now is the time that you can help us be prepared for the rest of hurricane season and just for the heavy storm season as thunderstorms come up every afternoon in the summer. So please let us know if you see any storm drainage issues, if they're along the streets or you see flooding in the streets, please do call VDOT. And then also to report flooding on your property or if you need help determining whose maintenance responsibility something is, please give our call center a call or email, or use the form, and we will definitely be more than happy to help you find out. And we do want to know that information as well. So please reach out if you see flooding. These two examples are from this month, actually. These are both VDOT responsibility. So the tickets have been submitted, and so those should be fixed relatively soon. But there's the car in Chantilly has a blocked storm drain or something, and that's causing this vehicle to be submerged in water when it rained just a few days ago. So here's more information about kind of our maintenance and stormwater management divisions, how they deal with drainage concerns. The inspector goes out, they figure out they educate the community members, they figure out what's going on, they investigate, they research it, they determine a work order, they determine responsibility for that. And then we hope to either note that it's an issue, or that we're going to solve the issue. So the one thing that you also can do for yourself is the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program. The FMAP is a new program that just started last year, and it provides grants, reimbursement grants, covering up to 50% of the costs for a floodproofing project for up to $5,000 per property. And it is intended for residents to do the floodproofing around their homes. There's lots of opportunities, lots of practices that you can implement, and then you apply for reimbursement with the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District. So that is a great new program for the residents of Fairfax County. Renters can actually apply for it with property owners' permission as well. So if you do live and you identify with the flood risk awareness tool that you've got some flooding issues around your neighborhood, or you need a little bit, you want a battery backup for your sump pump, or you want to install flood vents, flood gates, window wells, do some grading work around your home, French drains, things like that, contact the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District team and apply for FMAP. That's why it's there. It's there for the community. So please utilize that. And that's one of the important elements of mitigation, which Courtney will talk about in a little bit as well. Also, one other thing that folks can do is apply for flood insurance. So flood insurance does take a little bit of time to kick in. It's usually about 30-day waiting period. So now, again, is the time to do that. Go to floodsmart.gov and look up information. There are some myths and facts, though. I'm already covered. My homeowner's insurance covers flooding. It does not. You have to have a special endorsement. Usually flood insurance covers the flood damage. If flooding happens, disaster assistance will cover me. That's also not necessarily true. You must qualify for that. It must be, it's typically going to be in the form of a loan. So it's better to have the insurance. And the other myth that I want to dispel is that you need to live in a flood designated flood zone from FEMA to buy flood insurance. And that's not true. Anywhere it rains, it can flood. Anybody's eligible for flood insurance, and it's available at any location in the NFIP program. Fairfax County does participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, and it provides everybody a opportunity to buy flood insurance. It's administered by FEMA, and there are 22,000 participating communities nationwide. So if you're listening to us from another jurisdiction, chances are you probably participate as well. The building coverages, I'll just fly through these so that we can continue to get to any questions that might come up. But if building coverage has been purchased, then what's covered and what's not. You need to have contents coverage as well for some of those items that are inside. And if you are a renter or an owner, you are eligible to buy flood insurance, and you should get the contents coverage as well. What's not covered, some of the damage from mildew that happened throughout the life of the property, I'd say. Some precious metals, we should have those higher up, I suppose. And then coverage in the basement is limited regardless of the date. It depends on what the lowest certified level is. So just contact your flood insurance. You can acquire flood insurance through your insurance agent. So please contact your insurance agent if you are interested in getting flood insurance. Fairfax County has participated in the community rating system, which actually gives folks a 20% flood insurance discount under Risk Rating 2.0. So CRS is the discount for all policyholders in Fairfax County, and we're trying to get that next level up. So this year is our recertification year. So stay tuned. Hopefully our team in stormwater planning is working hard on improving our rating, and we do that every 5 years. So this is our year, and so stay tuned. Fingers crossed for that. So I want to bring Courtney back in for this piece, but basically we are, in addition to insurance and flood proofing and mitigation efforts, it's really important for everyone to be prepared and stay informed for all types of emergencies. So we say, have an emergency plan, an evacuation plan if you need one, and practice that with your family. Courtney, I'll let you kind of go into some of the other things here on the screen.
Sure. I would say one of the most important things that you could do is know how to get emergency information. So Chase has mentioned Fairfax Alerts. He's mentioned the River Watch program that we have, where we can notify folks in specific areas if they are going to get flooding or if we're anticipating that. But another great way is to have a NOAA weather radio. Know how to get news and information on your phone. A lot of people don't have cable now, so make sure you have those resources ready for you. We also have an emergency blog that you can sign up for. Anytime we post on the blog, it can send you an email to let you know that there's new information. And then if there's any status change to the county, we do have a county status page that you can check. I am going to talk a little bit more about making an emergency plan and a kit. So within the Community Emergency Response Guide, we have a really great checklist. And this is only meant to be a starter checklist. Everyone is going to make their own emergency kits based on what is good for their family. So there are suggestions here based on if you have any disabilities or access and functional needs, young children, pets or service animals, and then also an emergency kit in your car. Chase?
And so I was about to say in your car as well. So our key takeaways, or at least my key takeaways, why we want you to be prepared and be more resilient. Flooding is one of the most common natural hazards in our region and can happen at any storm, including tropical systems and their remnants. Extreme weather events are increasing, and so that's why you need to be prepared and know what to do and how to respond when flooding hits our area. So remember to use the flood risk awareness tool to determine if your home is near a floodplain or a sump or a bowl or an area with inadequate flow paths or water. Remember that water is going to follow the most available path of least resistance. Make room for the runoff by keeping those flow paths open and storm drains clear. Please check them out after each storm around your neighborhood. If there are any concerns, please give us a call. You can get started today. So please let us know if you see any flooding issues in your neighborhood. Any standing water along the roadways should be reported to VDOT or to us at MSMD and the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. Residents are also eligible for the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program with FMAP. FMAP offers applicants a 50% reimbursement up to $5,000 for the costs of projects that protect their properties from flood damage. Just 1 inch of water can cause thousands of dollars worth of damage to your home. Even if you're not in a designated floodplain, you could still be affected by flooding. So we encourage you to have flood insurance. Whether you own your place or you're renting, you can have flood insurance for the property and its contents. And as we just said, be prepared. Use the templates from Ready Fairfax, Courtney's about to get into, to create your personal emergency plan and build your kit. And stay informed. Sign up for Fairfax Alerts to get watches and warnings. Those living in Bellhaven, at the Bellevue, New Alexandria, and Huntington should also subscribe to Riverwatch. So I'll turn it back over to you, Courtney. Again, thank you for having us here, and we appreciate your help in building a more resilient community and more resilient toward flooding and all hazards.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for so much of that great information. Chase covered a lot of different topics today, from mitigation to preparedness to response, recovery. like Chase said, one of the most important things that you can do for yourself is to make sure that you do those mitigation projects, have insurance, and then be prepared. Make those emergency plans and make those emergency kits and be ready to take action. One of the things that I want to mention, aside from Fairfax Alerts, is Community Connect. This is a new tool, or a newer tool, from our Fairfax County Fire Department, and it's a great tool. You can go in, you can enter in information about your home, who lives there, if there's any pets, if there's any children, if there's anything special about your home. Businesses can also sign up. So this information, especially if we are dealing with a flooding event, we're able to go in and see if anyone with disabilities and access and functional needs maybe needs additional help in the area. We can also send messages out to these groups just to make sure that we are hitting everyone in that community. So making sure you're signing up. And then we also have the emergency health profile. While Community Connect is address-based, the emergency health profile is phone number based. So you register with your phone number, and any health information that you put into that system will come up for the dispatcher when you call. So Community Connect, it comes up for the dispatchers, but it can also come up on those fire units or ambulances as they're on their way to your residence. So if you scan the QR code or visit the website, it's just all three are really great tools to sign up for to give our first responders the most amount of information that we can. So don't forget to follow us on social media. We are on X, Facebook, and Instagram. This week is Hurricane Preparedness Week, so you'll see a lot of great information on there about how to prepare specifically for hurricanes. So obviously hurricanes typically bring a lot of flooding, and although we have not seen a direct hit from a hurricane since the 1950s, which was Hurricane Hazel, we see effects of hurricanes all the time. So even if we are pretty far away from the eye of the storm, like Chase said, we could see those effects. And we'll be back in June, June 4th, which is the first Wednesday of the month. And you can expect another great guest on here. So thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you next month.